right, folks. Thank you so much for coming. So this is preparing an alliance for a match. This is the second time I'm doing this presentation, and the first time was like a week ago. So you guys are getting the better version. So basically, these are lessons learned the hard way. A lot of them for what to do to prepare an alliance for a match. What 694 does to prepare our alliances for a match. First of all, who am I? Who is this guy? I'm Joe Blay. I've been doing FRC for 20 years, all with 694, 4 as a student. As a student, mostly my role was strategy. I was on the mechanical team, but most of my role was strategy. And then my senior year, I did get the drive. And my junior and senior years, I was in charge of strategy. You guys can close the door now. It's a little noisy out there. Okay. I've been the drive coach since 2011 for 694. In that time, we've won a bunch. Done pretty well, especially in the last few years. And I've also been the lead strategy mentor. In 2017-18, so that season, that school year, I took over teaching here at Stuy. And I've been the head coach and leader of the robotics program as a teacher and a coach since the 2017-18 season. Okay, some guiding principles that kind of like inspire a lot of not just my coaching, but our approach to getting an alliance ready. For starters, be, for lack of a better word, paranoid. Who knows what Murphy's Law is? What's Murphy's Law? Yes. Yeah.
If something can go wrong.
Yeah, and this is really true in an FRC competition. Anyone who's been kind of like in the thick of it at an FRC competition knows. I think Rahul over there, I just saw him wince, knows this better than most because he often will work with with teams at competitions that are having trouble. So he really knows that. So you have to be a little paranoid. You have to be like on top of your every little detail. Like if you watch me as we're getting ready for a match, like as our alliance is going on the field, you will see varying levels of a crazy person running around and trying to like deal with anything that could go wrong. Like if I have nothing to do, I will literally walk the path of our robot's autonomous and pick up any like zip tie bits or that might be in the path of our robot because hey, that could go in a module. So you should always be thinking about like what could go wrong. Next, give it your all. Kind of. We all care about it. It's Saturday. I want to be in bed. I think we all want to probably be in bed, but we're here. You slept out to Stuyvesant High School to learn about robotics. I'm going to guess you care a lot about FRC competitions, and so do I. And we all want to give it our all and leave it all out there and do our best to rank as high as we possibly can, do as well in the match as we possibly can. So give it your all, absolutely, but be respectful, kind, considerate. It's not worth it if everyone thinks your team is full of jerks. This is a game, we care a lot, but the wins and losses don't really matter because it's just a game. We do care, but it's just a game. And I kind of put these out of order. I really wanted to talk about being a good ambassador for your team. Raise your hand if you are on drive team or are one of the people like talking to other teams in like huddles before a match. Okay. So you are all ambassadors for your team. Generally, the head people on each team, they just are going to talk to you. That's what is going to be their lasting image of your team. So the way you carry yourself, the way you speak to these people, is you're really representing your team when you do that. And I think that it's a privilege, right? But it's also like, you got to do right by your team members. You don't want to be a jerk because then everyone's going to think your team is full of jerks. Be fun to play with and against. And this GP stuff really actually works. What do I mean by that? I think a lot of people, especially students, mentors too, they might be nice at first when they start doing this because you get awards for it. You might be nice at first because other teams pick you, right? And then those of us who stick around long enough, what we realize is that it's nice to be nice, but it also makes you more successful when you're nice and people appreciate being around you. If your team is a jerk, no one wants to play with you, they're not going to play as well when they are with you. Conversely, if you are really nice to be in a match with, even if your robot kind of sucks, you're going to get the best out of your partners. And that's really true. And I've learned that to be the case. Last thing, I did a lot of order. Be a good listener. Listen to what your partners are saying. Really hear them. Don't just like race past them like this is a strategy we should run and you just ignore what everyone else says. You really have to listen to their concerns. This person, does anyone know who that is? Okay, this is going in the Wayback Machine. So this guy here, his name is Amir. He was the head coach of Team 1717, the Deep Penguineers, who back in the day when he was running their program was like one of the top teams in FRC. And then he left and the team didn't survive long after that. But the reason I put him on here is we had a match with them in 2010 at Champs, and it was my first year mentoring. And that kind of like circle conversation changed the way I viewed these conversations because we sucked. Our drivetrain broke like every match. And I felt like as we were talking, he was not only asking great questions to understand what was going on, but also I felt kind of, and my kids especially, the kids felt safe to explain what was going wrong, which I think is a skill, right? Teams will withhold information about their robots unless they feel comfortable like it's not going to hurt something like some performance or be embarrassing for them to share what's going on. So creating that environment I think is really important, and this guy, that one match together, like really taught me the value of that and changed the way that I coach. All right, so there are a few different settings for preparing an alliance, and not a lot of people think of practice matches as one of those settings, but it really is. It's a really important time to kind of successfully build what your alliance is going to do. Do we care about the points we score in a practice match? No, I mean some people do, but I don't. Most teams don't. It's about testing something, right? What are some things you might want to test in a practice match? Take any hands, yeah.
Your elevator.
Your elevator, right? You want to see your elevator go up and down.
Your auto.
Your auto, right? Let's look at 2025 for a second, right? Maybe you have a side 3-piece auto you want to test. Maybe you have a center auto that you want to test, right? And you want to know that stuff going in, what things you might want to test. You want to test your climb, right? You want to be on top of that as a team going into any conversation with your partners of what is a priority for you to test and what could be a secondary thing for you to test. For instance, this year, we're going to our first practice match. I knew I wanted us to test our side autos. We had a center auto, but we had no intention of running that at any point in our first competition. So we had no intention of running that in practice matches. And we want to run our right side auto and our left side auto, right? So as we're going into matches, a team really wants to run the right side. Have we tested the left side auto yet? No. Okay, we'll do that. Or let's say we've only tested our right side. We've only tested our left side. We have to run our right side. I might ask questions like, have you run your auto? Have you gotten the chance to run yours yet? We haven't gotten the chance to run ours yet. And teams, like you have these conversations and it'll work out, but you have to have them. So a couple of things. First off, for practice matches, you don't find out who you're going to play with. You find out who you're going to play with at the last second. We get a practice match schedule, but what do most of us do after we get inspected? Anyone know? Filler line, go into the queue, and then you're just getting paired with essentially random teams. And there's a point when you're in the queue where you find out who your partners are. That's the point where it's really, really important to start asking them these questions and getting on the same page on what each of you wanted to test. I always like to ask the question of, what do you really want to test right now? What are you really on the field to do? And understand their priority. It's like, we like to test our auto, but we really need to test our climb. Okay? Great. We're going to make sure that anything we run on this field is going to be the climb, or vice versa, right? So you understand where their priorities are and where there's a little bit of flexibility. Because it's hard. If all of you want to test the same auto, and there are 3 of you, how do you sort that out? So having those conversations really helps. Have one of these. This is our strat mat. We print this and we laminate this. We usually have about 10 copies, and we draw on it with a whiteboard marker. During practice matches especially, it's great to have a bank of these on your cart. That way you can quickly draw out what your alliance is going to do, where everyone's going to go, so you can stay out of each other's way. Otherwise, your practice match will be wasted by your partner dying where you're supposed to do your whole thing, or you dying where your partner's supposed to do the whole thing. In situations where you and your partner are trying to do the same thing, you ask those questions, but also see if it's possible to switch alliances. Become friends with the lead queuer. they might let you switch alliances because there's like an empty spot there and you can't sort it out. It's not too late. Like let's say, we're not on deck, we're the match before, we're in the hole. So a lot of times the queuer will let you if they're nice. If you're friendly with them, they'll be nicer to you. And if all else fails, tried and true, rock, paper, scissors, one time. Pick one student, rock, paper, scissors. Who's going to win? So that's always fun. Be considerate of other teams. The interactions during practice matches set the tone for the entire competition. If you are a jerk in your practice match and you bully another team off of testing the auto, and though this is their only practice match they're going to get to play, that team's going to remember that. And if you have a match with them, they're not going to be as agreeable. They might be bad now, but they're great next year, and now they just like hate you, and they want to beat you with all of their might. And you don't want that either, right? So be nice. It helps to be nice. Listening and asking questions. These are great images. Last night. Having a successful alliance huddle comes down to being on the same page as your alliance partners. You have to communicate well with your alliance partners, and this comes down to two things. Really listening to what they're saying and asking them appropriate questions to figure out what they're going to do. Questions I like to ask. What strategy were you thinking about? If I know that they're going to have a different idea than us, I like to have them lay it out first, so that way I can find the points of agreement. Right? We were thinking we play defense, we definitely want to climb, we want to run our auto from the side. Okay. Maybe Brennan and I talked and we were thinking they don't play defense, but the other stuff is good. So I'll say, okay, that sounds great, that sounds great. What do you guys think of this? So we're already like getting some wins. Like we're already on the same page on something else. Instead of us just laying out, this is what you should do. First of all, we sound like jerks, right? But this is what you should do. And they're not focusing on what we have in common. They're focusing on that difference. Have you run this type of strategy before? Are you comfortable with that? I love asking drivers this question. Are you comfortable with that? Especially if it's something that's different than what they usually do. And you can get a lot from how they respond. Maybe they say, yeah, but I haven't done that since week 3. Or I haven't done that since we were practicing at home. Or yeah, I feel great about that. We practice it all the time. All of them say that they're on board to do the strategy, right? But all of them mean different things and give you a certain sense of their comfort, and you can adjust accordingly. And this question, very important to ask. What happened in your last match? They didn't move, they broke. Don't ignore it. Ask, understand it well. And really listen. Okay, this one's big. Who here feels like they've been lied to, gaslit, led astray by another team? Okay? Happens. It happens. How do you deal with that? Is a question that I think a lot of us always ask whenever we have one of these talks. Like, how do you deal with alliance partners who aren't being honest with you? But also, a lot of times, they're not being honest with themselves, right? About what their robot's capable of, because in their heads, they're thinking about the best their robot's ever done for 15 seconds, extrapolated across 2 minutes and 30 seconds, right? And that's like what their robot will be capable of in their head. So first of all, address the stuff head on, right? You say you're capable of this, our scouting says this, which is wrong. What happened here, right? Because they're going to say, oh yeah, that match we were kind of like broken. Our arm broke. Oh yeah, in that match our arm broke. Yeah, in that match our arm broke. Like, okay, why is the arm breaking? Okay, what's stopping the arm from breaking this match? Or they might have addressed it, right? Especially early regionals. That stuff gets better. Don't ignore hesitation. Don't ignore concerns. Listen. Listen to what they're saying. Okay, next type of huddle. We go from practice matches to qualification matches. And I think there are two types of qualification matches. There's your early qualification matches, and then there's the rest of them. The thing that's different about your first 2 to 3 qualification matches, I like to think about before lunch on the first day versus after lunch. The thing that's different about those matches before lunch is everyone's still figuring out what they are. This is especially true in early regionals, but it's even true at Worlds. Everyone's still figuring out what they're capable of. They think they know, it's different on the real field. This is when teams are at their worst. When we have a match schedule, if we have a bad match, I want it to be one of these matches. Like our match where we're like not favored, like StatBotics says we have a 20% chance to win. I want that to be one of the first few matches because that's when teams will play their worst. That's when teams will break, right? We all break the most in our early matches. And one of the separators between good teams and great teams is the great teams don't do that. So not just robots are at their worst. Everything's at their worst. Drivers are more nervous. Scouting isn't in a good place. No one knows what you're capable of, so they might not send a defender when they should, or they send a defender when they shouldn't, or they defend the team that they shouldn't, or they send a team that's just going to commit a bunch of fouls because they haven't played defense yet and committed all the fouls. So they're going to try to play defense now, and then they commit all the fouls. All right, so it's opportunity. Ways to do well in these matches. First off, pit scouting and practice match scouting helps a lot. I actually think pit scouting is useful for two things. One, it's kind of useful for making your pick list because you get a sense of, key stuff. How much does a robot weigh? How tall is a robot? How wide is a robot? Can come up game to game, right? But what it's most useful for in my mind is those first few matches. In pit scouting, we ask questions like, what do you see yourself doing during autonomous? What do you do during driver control? Does that mean the robot's going to be capable of that? No. But that means that's what they're going to try to do in their first few matches. Every team's in their first few matches is going to generally run the strategy that they intend to run going in, and then things change, right? So we ask those types of questions, and that tells us for our partners what strategy they're going to intend on running, which helps us shape our perspective on the whole conversation before we ever have it, right? So that we can predict how that conversation is going to go, and we can kind of shape it in the direction we think makes sense. It's also helpful against your opponents because they're telling you what they're going to do, right? Practice match scouting, same thing, but take it with a grain of salt. A team might score an L4 8 times because they're trying to make sure L4 works, but they really plan to not score an L4 that much, right? So you have to take the practice match scouting with a grain of salt. Okay, more advice for the early matches. Be conservative and simple with your strategy when possible. Teams will not execute complex strategies in the first matches. Okay? Don't make dependent strategies. If red robot 1 does this, red robot 2 does this after that, red robot 3 does this after that. Because here's what's going to happen. Red robot 1 is going to break in the spot where red robot 2 is going to go, and then red robot 3 is never going to get there, right? So I'm always a fan of splitting the field so teams don't exist in the same space. It's especially important in the early matches that there's zero crossing, zero dependent strategies because one of the robots will likely break. Okay? And have the backup robot parking, all that stuff. Have contingency plans for robot breakdowns. We always want to have contingency plans as an alliance, but it's especially important early on. Ranking points are lost. Let's take this game for example. You get the climb RP by one robot climbing and one robot parking, right? That's what it was at the regional level. And what we would do, because again, paranoid, is we would have one robot park. Why not have the second robot park? Any ideas why we didn't want to do that?
Maybe it makes it harder for the robot to climb.
Less space for the climb, huge consideration. Yes, and there's another small. This is like super paranoid. Yeah.
You could potentially have them run more coral cycles if they're just in a park.
That's what we tell them, like stay out and keep scoring because you can do more coral cycles, but there's some other fear.
They can bump into you while you're climbing.
Bump into us while we're climbing, support us, and then we lose the climb, right? So what are we chasing? Because we need to climb either way when you want to roll out to park. Now with that, you have to have the contingency. If they break, you park. We would make an exception if a team's playing defense because they would just go both on the side and go this way. We'd have two teams park. And then eventually as the season progressed, we had all our partners park because, more points. Points are points. Points are good. Okay. But we had contingencies. That's the key part. Okay. Qualification matches. The rest of them. So this applies to all of them, right? Have a plan going in. This is before you start the alliance huddle. So Brendan here is our head of strategy. So we will check in before we go talk to our partners, unless we're like in a huge rush. We'll check in to make sure we're on the same page. Because if we're going there and the two of us are saying different things, that's not going to work. Have to be in a united front with your teammates, okay? If you have like a concern, say it off to the side. Don't disagree with your teammate in front of everybody, because then your teammate loses all credibility, right? I mean, unless they say something totally insane, like at some point. There are limits, obviously. Yeah, don't contradict each other. This is a quote from The Godfather. I say it to the kids. They have no idea what I'm talking about. If you watch The Godfather, it'll make sense. Okay. So have a plan going in. Talk to your partners. This is a really key point that I learned by being on the wrong side of it. Teams need to commit to what they're doing. So we had a match in my first year as a drive coach, 2011, where actually wasn't drive coaching yet at that point in the season, and matches like this are part of why I took over as the drive coach. But we went into a match with the Uber bots, 11 and 24, who were awesome that year. And we said we were going to do one thing, and we had a conversation. My drivers were not on board for this strategy. My drive coach was not on board for this strategy, but that's what we agreed to, right? So we went out there, and what did we do? Not the strategy we agreed to. We did the thing the drivers and the coach felt like. We were not a united alliance. And after the match, the drive coach came up to me and he screamed at me, which wasn't a great way to react by him. But I took the lesson of we lost that match because we did that. That's just a fact. And it's because we weren't on the same page with our partners. We weren't fully committed to the strategy. Something you might hear, we'll do that for 20 seconds and we'll see how it goes. Maybe we'll keep doing it. Maybe we'll play defense. Who's heard that kind of thing before, right? That team never does that. They do the thing that they wanted to do all along, right? They'll play defense maybe for 10 seconds. They'll fake it, and then they'll go play offense. And then why do they cross the field? Why did they just waste 30 seconds? Because you guys weren't united. So I think the wrong strategy executed well is going to beat the right strategy executed poorly. If you cannot get your partners on board with what you think is the best thing, and they're not on board for it, but they're on board for something else, you have to do the something else, because they're not going to execute it, right? They have to be fully committed to the strategy you're running. I'm never okay with saying, we'll do this for this amount of time, we'll see how it goes, and then we'll switch to that, because it never works like that. No one's ever going to do that. Okay. Next, pay attention to the rankings going into late matches. Rankings can tell you a few things. If a team is ranked really low, what might they want to do in their last match? If they're ranked 40th. Yeah, in the back. Show off, right? Makes sense. They don't care about their ranking anymore. They get 0 ranking points, they get 6 ranking points. Not going to change anything for them. What are some things they might want to show off? Yeah. Defense. What else? Yeah. Climb, right? This climber has never worked, but it's gonna work now, and we're gonna get picked because of it. They're not gonna get picked because of it, because teams are probably done scouting too, but it happens, right? So how do you deal with these situations? Know going in that that's gonna be the conversation. Look at where they are in the rankings to kind of anticipate. A lot of this stuff is about anticipation. Anticipate before you're having the conversation what they're going to want to do, and try to build a strategy that lets them show off still, because they have every right to do that, right? Let's say we're fighting for the top spot, and they're fighting to get picked. Do we have more right to get ranking points, go for ranking points, than they have a right to go out there and show off the thing they want to show off? No. So figure out the strategy that fits with the thing that they're going to want to show off. They want to climb? Okay. Let's make sure you guys have enough time to climb. Let's make sure you park no matter what. They park still, right? Helps us get a ranking point. Not so bad. Okay, maybe they're not capable of scoring much, but them trying to climb actually does help our alliance. Versus, them just us disagreeing on what they should do or not, and then they don't do anything helpful. Okay, and another one is someone fighting for position in the top 8. That's going to shape if they want to go for ranking points or not, obviously. And then the last one is someone going to have a false sense of importance because of their ranking. Who here has come across a team that has a false sense of importance because of their ranking? Who here has probably been a team that has had a false sense of importance because of their ranking, right? We all do it. It makes sense. Like you're up high, you're feeling good. That's gonna help you going in. You know, I've definitely heard the sentence, "We know what we're doing. We're the 4th seed," right? Like we're not doing the strategy you're talking about, right? That's something that was like very early on in my coaching career, and was a sentence that made me go, "Okay, wow, all right." I have no idea how to deal with this. But knowing about it going in and knowing that that's going to be their mindset, maybe you let them speak first. Them sharing their strategy first and trying to find that commonality, that'll help a lot with that. So, again, a lot of it's about anticipation. All right, pre-match review. Review the match strategy together. Most alliances do this, right? But it's important to have a system in place for what pre-match review looks like. I think this is one of the things that we do best on 694, is we review the match in the queue. Here's what our system looks like. When we move up on deck, we meet as an alliance. When we're just before on deck, I'll tell the teams in our alliance, hey guys, we're just going to huddle up real quick when we're on deck to go over the strategy. That way, when we're on deck, I just go like this, and we all come together. We find a spot, we come together, and I'll do that. But really in my head, I feel like I'm doing that, and it feels super cool, but really it looks like that. So I'll have the strat mat down here on my knee, right? I'm on one knee, like this, and I have the strat mat right here, and I will point it towards the drivers, and we review the strategy. Here's what I say. Let's review the strategy. If there are any questions or misunderstandings, we want to figure them out here, not on the field. And that's a really important point to get everyone's attention. We want to figure them out here, not on the field. Because in that, wrapped in that, is no judgment on what they're going to do. No judgment on what they're going to do. No judgment on what we're going to do. Everyone has experienced someone or an alliance messing up. And every team, no matter how good or bad their robot is, knows what that's like and knows this conversation is beneficial, and you get everyone on the same page. That's good. What I try to do is have the drivers say what they will be doing, because that's the ultimate confirmation that they understand what's going to happen. You sometimes rush for time, so I'll just like say everything, and I'll look at the driver as I'm saying it. It's like, you're going here, right? And you know, if I see that their attention is waiting, this is where like the teacher in me comes into play. If I see their attention is waiting, then I'll definitely do the, what are you going to do then? And they're like, what? Yeah, okay, let's run it from the top. What are you going to do at the start of the match, right? Because there's a bunch of reasons for this, right? It's a confirmation. Also, very often, drivers are not in the alliance talk at the start. Very often, it's a strategy person from their team. Maybe it's just the drive coach. Maybe it's just the operator or the human player. And something was relayed wrong, because you're playing a game of telephone, right? This is how you make sure that everything is correct. And I got to tell you, there'll be times when we're doing this and we'll realize a misconception that our driver has or that I have, and we're able to find out about it in that huddle instead of on the field. So highly recommend this. This will save you matches. This will save you ranking points. Okay. Let's talk about playoffs. So there are two general styles of playoff huddle. The first one and the rest of them. The first one's the most important. First one's like this meet and greet, right? Here's how you organize it. First, do not wait for people to eat lunch. Don't let anyone disappear. Be proactive. As soon as you know a team is on your alliance, do not wait for alliance selection to be over. Find them, find their drivers. We're meeting now. We're not meeting later. Okay, you need to eat? Get your food now, meet us there. Bring it, eat there. That's fine. Don't let them disappear. Our driver eats during alliance selections. I do not need our driver to watch alliance selections. He will find out the alliances. It's not going to change anything. Him eating lunch and not being distracted while we're doing this conversation is going to help. So, biggest piece of advice to you, have your drive team eat lunch during alliance selections, right? So they're available, right? They don't need to eat lunch with everyone. They'll survive without having that one fun time. They get to drive the robot. That's their fun time. They have to work, okay? So do not keep your key people out there for the ref talk. So if you're an alliance captain, it's one student alliance captain stays out, talks to the referee. That referee is not telling you anything that important. I mean, he is, but it's like alliance coupons. It's like basic rules. If your team knows what's up, you're fine. leave someone up there who is like capable of relaying an important message, right? Because sometimes they'll be like, your team has to line up here actually, or like you can bring your pit out, some important stuff. So someone who is not just like a warm body, but actually someone who has like a good head on their shoulders and is going to relay important information and not just put the timeout, the backup coupon in their pocket and walk away. A real thing that happened this year. Okay. Do not keep your key people out there for the ref talk. So if it's your head strategy person, they don't need to be there for an extra 10, 15 minutes. Okay? Let teams know the plan. That the plan is as soon as let them know. So like you pick a team, you get them. I already said that. Get them, let them know. All right. You have your huddle. Here is one of our huddles. This is from Battle Cry in 24. Get everyone together around, sit down, have a conversation. This should be the longest conversation together as an alliance. Okay. Now I say the opening talk. Open, see this in all caps. Yeah? So this has to be an open conversation. What does that look like? Here's what I always say at the start of these conversations. We're one alliance now. We've picked each other. There's no turning back. We don't need to withhold anything from each other. We need to be honest with each other. We need to communicate well. I think throughout the course of a competition, your motivations for what you want to do in a match are different. Sometimes it's you really want to make sure you're playing offense because you're an offensive robot and that's your ultimate mission, right? When you're in a playoff alliance, your ultimate mission is to win in this alliance. You're no longer getting picked. But that aspect of getting picked or ranking high affects how teams communicate with their partners throughout qualification matches. It should not influence how they communicate with their partners during elimination matches. So how do you break down this barrier that gets built up over these qualification matches where this is kind of like the learned way they talk to each other? They talk to other teams. So what we say is, no turning back, we're together. What are the things that are going well for you? What are the things that are not going well for you? What are the things you're best at? What are the things you're uncomfortable with and bad at? What is breaking down on your robot? Do you have enough batteries? What are your other concerns? And I will always have us start. And the focus is for us is on the negative. What is breaking down on our robot first? Now, generally in life, my philosophy is always start with the positive and then put a little sliver of positive at the end, right? As adults, we're taught to do that for a lot of stuff. But compliment sandwich, if anyone's heard of that, right? But for this, I want our partners to feel comfortable sharing what is not working on their robot. So if I start with our robot's a mess, here's all the things that are going wrong, the thought is in their heads they'll be like, okay, all right. I know, like, this is an open conversation. I can share my stuff too. And I find that that is usually the case. Is it always the case? No, but oftentimes it will be the case. And what teams will say will surprise you. We've been climbing every match because we wanted to get picked, but we're actually worried every time we climb that it's going to break the climber. Great, we have that information. Now, we're going into a match. We know we should win this match by 100 points, whatever. Let's not have them climb. Let's have them line up to climb so they feel good and practiced about it, but let's not have them climb. Or we are going to lose this match by 100 points, but we're still alive in the bracket, same thing. Or the match is really close, this is the match where you need to climb. Right? So you can make those decisions based on information you might not have had without that conversation, based on information they might not have shared without that conversation. Might be something that they're really good at, that they've practiced a ton, that they have video of them doing really well, they never did in a qualification match. Defense, scoring on the backside of the reef, whatever it is, having this conversation will allow them to an opening to share it, okay? Develop a baseline strategy. I think it is really important to have a consistent strategy in playoffs. This is not always possible. Sometimes you have to be constantly adjusting your strategy. It depends on the state of your alliance. But the more times you run a strategy, what's going to happen every time you run the strategy to your alliance? Yeah.
The better you are at it.
You're going to get better at it, right? You're going to figure out where the wrinkles are, the parts that aren't going so well, and you're going to clean those up, right? The more times you run a strategy, the more consistent you are with it, the better. So I like to, as an alliance, have a baseline strategy that we're always going to stick to, and then you'll have contingencies within that, and you'll have like you'll think about, okay, this is our baseline strategy, but if we play Alliance 1, one of us got to play defense, okay? And then we say, okay, who's going to play defense? What does that look like? So that when you actually face that alliance, when you have like 10 minutes to prepare, you've already talked about it, right? This is your big window of time together. This is the time to have those conversations. So develop kind of your baseline strategy, but also some alternatives. This is game dependent. This year that we just played, it was kind of 3-on-3 on opposite sides of the field. Not a ton of interaction. Depends on the level of play. So it was like a lot more possible to run that consistent strategy, right? Because you knew where you're picking up. Other games, 2024, for example, it's a lot more dynamic, right? Depends on what's happening in the match, depends on who you're playing, and you make adjustments accordingly. All right. Future alliance huddles. What these should look like. We don't always do the best job of this because in the heat of battle, you lose your head a little bit. What do you want this to look like? Review footage with drivers if you have it. Blue Alliance exists. Most of our competitions are immediately uploaded. Sit together as an alliance, watch the matches, talk about where things went wrong, talk about adjustments you would make. If you're running a consistent strategy, this is where these improvements will happen. Highlight anything that needs adjusting. And this is really, really important, this third bullet. Highlight the good stuff. If you're an alliance captain and you're with a rookie team as your second pick, and that driver is driving in their first ever playoff match, you think that driver's nervous? Yes. Extremely nervous. If you are a great coach, if you are a great alliance peer, you can really get that team in a great window. So prop them up. Highlight the good stuff. There's still some stuff you need to highlight as like, okay, fix that, fix that, fix that. Use that compliment sandwich. We're back to the compliment sandwich. You did this really great. Here are some things to improve. Oh, and this was really awesome. Feels good. They'll be better. I think a lot about this one off-season event we played in 2019. Our second pick, I won't reveal the team name, the team number, because their coach was being kind of a jerk to their driver. And I could see that. When we played our first match, I could see that their coach was just yelling at the driver, like being super critical of everything that they were doing. And it was really affecting them. And I'm sure we've all seen that kind of thing, right? So basically from that match forward, I was just like, this kid, I was just telling him he was doing a great job. We made the strategy simple, one that they could execute really well, so they felt confident. And then during the match, I would just come over, I go, you're doing great, this is great, you're lighting it up, keep going. Right? Just that like 5-second like check-in to say that made him feel great and keep going and keep doing well. Like it does make a difference because this is like a stressful environment, obviously. Okay, if the strategy is not changing between matches, right? You're running your baseline strategy over and over again. Running the same thing, we watch the match, sound good? Everything sound good? Good, keep it short. Teams have robots to work on, teams want to get in a good headspace. You don't need to talk their ear off for no reason. So keep it short. Quick check-in with minor changes mentioned. If the strategy is changing, still try to minimize the time of these huddles. Because the time gets really short. You look at that bracket, the time gets shorter and shorter the further you go. So keep these conversations shorter and shorter. And the earlier you huddle after the match, the better. It gives time for teams to make modifications. Mostly, what are we making modifications to between playoff matches? Not robots, but strategies. And what might we make a modification to? Someone crashed an autonomous routine. You need time to do that. Change the software. Software. It's usually software. Okay. And stay on top of the bracket. Here are the bracket rules. This is from the game manual. Do you need the referee to give this to you? It's in the game manual. No, you do not. It's right here. Here are the breaks. It's in the game manual. It might be a little different this year. You'll see it in the game manual, but it's probably going to be the same exact thing. Know when the breaks are. Know what alliance color you are. This will help. I like to go around after the match. I'll say, okay, we're next up, match 7, blue bumpers. Match 7, blue bumpers. Then it's not right before the match, we're blue bumpers. Where are the blue bumpers? Right? It's when they're coming off the field, they're aware of that. that helps. These little things really help prepare your alliance so they're not stressed. Know if your partners are dealing with something. Make sure they know if you are dealing with something. Make sure everyone knows the alliance color and match of your upcoming match. Okay? That helps a lot. All right. Let's kick it over to questions, situations, anything. Yeah.
Have you ever reunited with Amir?
Have I reunited with Amir? That's a good question. So, this guy. So, we had our match together in 2010, and I believe their last year, I didn't. It was 2013. Yeah. But they were really, really, really incredible. Really good. Yeah. Any other questions?
One thing I would add on what you were saying about keeping to your strategy is the importance of that doesn't lie only on getting a good result for that match, but also not getting DNP'd for that. Because like, if you go to a match, you say, oh, I'm going to do that, and you go back on what you were saying, you're also showing that maybe that team can't trust you that much to follow through on whatever you're saying. Maybe you're hard to talk to or arrogant, and your robot might still be good, and that might not matter. But maybe if the choice is closer, it could matter, and people could see that, hey, it could be a bit hard to work with that team. We could maybe not get everything we can. So It's not just that match, right?
And teams talk, right? You might be playing a match with Under Control, and you don't care if Under Control picks you or not, right? I mean, I'd love to play with Under Control. They're freaking awesome. But
We have
their coach right here is gonna be asked like, oh, how was it working with that team? And like, yikes, it was rough. You know, and that you don't want that conversation to happen. You want the reverse. You want people to talk about how good you are to work with. Like, I think one of our biggest challenges was in 2024. We went to Chesney Chance, and our robot was not in great shape. And it was broken like every single match. But if you ask those teams that we played with, I think that they all said like positive things about their experience working with us, because we were honest about the state of our robot. We did our best. We did our best within the limitations of our robot, and we communicated things that were going on, right? Ultimately, like, if your robot's in a bad place, your robot's in a bad place. You're not going to blame people for having the robot in a bad place. It's like, all right, I'm a teacher, right? I'm the teacher here, and we come back from a competition. I can't leave till the last kid leaves, right? And then that last kid is sitting here, and what is their parent telling me? Oh, 10 minutes away, right? And they're not 10 minutes away. They're 40 minutes away. They're leaving their house right now. Why am I upset? Well, I'm upset because they're 40 minutes late, right? Why am I much more upset? Because They're not telling the truth, right? They're like stretching it because they're like, oh, maybe if I hit the BQE perfectly, right, I'll get there in time. For 10 minutes. They're not telling the truth to themselves either. But yeah, it's very frustrating, right? So I think it's the same type of thing for robot performance. Like, you really should be honest with what your robot is capable of. Maybe you think it's capable of more. You can say that, right? We're shooting 70%, but I think we got something dialed in. Maybe we'll shoot 80, but based on what we were doing before, I think we're good for 70%. Great, I can work with that, right? I know what's going to happen. Yeah. Other questions? Yes.
You really hope that this doesn't happen because of good sportsmanship. But do you have any tips for if you have perhaps some antagonistic alliance members, like you have your a first match in playoffs and people are getting a little hostile and aggressive? Have you seen something like that before?
So much. Some tips. Still figuring it out a lot of the time. It depends. I think we, gotten better at it over the years and are definitely able to handle certain situations better. I think having adults there is important. Like, the fact is, if you are, like, this is, for kids. right? But if you're going to an alliance meeting and there's one adult who's being a jerk and there's 3 kids, it's much harder. And an adult can say, "Hold on, let's lower the temperature here. Let's relax." Which is, that phrase, "Let's lower the temperature," is something I say a lot in just all around, everywhere in life, amongst kids. But I think having an adult helps. I think grounding what you're saying in data helps a lot. Like, I get you want to do this, but you're scoring 5 game pieces a match. Is this wrong? Like, we need to run the strategy that makes the most sense. Yeah, it's hard though. Sometimes people suck. Yeah.
I kind of have a question about when, as a drive coach, you should prioritize winning or RPs. Obviously, this year you had 3 RPs for winning, but for other years you had 2. So I'm just wondering, like, do you use stuff like statistics, the probability of winning matches? Does that come into play when you're making those decisions?
So I don't think we use statistics so much. Like, we look at statistics, but we look at game pieces scored. We do some sort of like prediction. And the thing I'll always say to Brendan here is, are we hurting for points? Like, is this match close? And we know that going in. If the match is close, you prioritize the win. If the match isn't close one way or the other, you prioritize ranking points. And you adjust in real time during the match. The reality is, having a great robot makes everything a lot easier, right? Like, this year, I think something that helped us a lot is our robot was so fast at scoring across from human player station that both ranking point wise and points wise, it made sense for us to fill that whole phase. Go L4 through L2. Some other teams, they're going all the way around the reef and they're going L4, 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 right? But I actually think for a lot of teams, that back L4, doing that L4, they could have done 2 game pieces on across from the human player station at the same time. Definitely for us, that was the case. So there were a lot of situations where the same strategy made sense, the same actions made sense for trying to get the win and the ranking point. And ultimately, if you can get those 2 things aligned, strategy becomes a lot simpler. That question becomes a lot simpler. And that was the case for us this year, is like that the strategy did not change much between wins and ranking points. But to answer your deeper question, because it extends across games and robots, match prediction. Like, if you think you're going to win by a lot, chase the ranking points. If you think you're going to lose by a lot, chase the ranking points. If you think it's close, prioritize the win. Yeah. Yes?
You seem very comfortable talking and communicating, and no one is really born with the skill of communication. So, like, how did over time did you gain the skill of communication, and how do you really teach that to your students?
It definitely is a learned skill. Thank you. That was a very nice compliment. I appreciate it. I'm a teacher, so I'm practicing every day, right? And I went through like classes that taught me how to communicate better. The ultimate answer, practice. The more conversations you have, the better you're going to do. For teaching my students, I think a helpful thing that I try to do is we do that anticipation thing when we're having that conversation. I tell them what I'm thinking, I tell them what I'm anticipating the other teams will say. And I think, them seeing that thinking or like hearing that thinking goes a long way. And then talking about it afterwards, like how something went, what they could have said differently, I think that helps as well. But ultimately, one word answer, practice. Yeah. Yes?
During like championships at Houston, when let's just say you're like an alliance captain, and maybe the first pick might be a bit more easier, but second pick where everyone's like all really good, they can all do like everything. Like, what do you think is one most thing you look at that like helps easier to determine who you pick?
So you're talking about like how to pick teams, right?
Yeah.
Data, ultimately. Consistency, very important. Accuracy is really important. I think that's something we scout a lot more than other teams. Is not just how many shots a team hits, but like how many they take. It's different game to game, right? Definitely this year, algae percentage in the net, something we were looking at a lot at Worlds. Didn't really help us too much because our choices were limited in the situations we got in with our alliance at Worlds, but it definitely helped us in like the off season a lot. And Definitely helped us in the offseason a lot. We were just getting that. I think 2022 is a game that you're looking at a lot of accuracy. Because what ends up happening is as the level of play gets better and better, game piece supply goes down, right? And if game piece supply goes down, then accuracy becomes more and more important. So a team might be scoring 18 game pieces a match when there aren't strong robots on the field, but you know based on how they're playing, because they're shooting 30 game pieces, that they're not going to be able to shoot 30 game pieces. They're going to shoot 20 game pieces, and now they're probably going to score like 11 game pieces, right? So I think accuracy is really, really, really important. Depends on the game. Yeah.
When you're doing your pre-match huddles or playoff huddles, especially this could be the case at Gotham, there are a ton of international teams. And some of those international teams might not speak any English. How would you overcome the language barrier between the teams?
That is a great question. I think most often teams will have one or two people who speak English, and that person is usually on the drive team. I think a lot of teams will handle that internally. I think sometimes we'll have students who speak that language, and it's like, all right, let's have them be a technician for this match. That hasn't really come up too often, but definitely it can. But I think for the most part, the international teams usually have one person who speaks English. Funny enough, the only time I remember it being an issue was actually a New York team where the students only spoke Spanish. And there was no one on the team who spoke English. It was a team from the Bronx. And I was like, okay. Luckily our driver speaks Spanish, so that helps. Well, he speaks like school Spanish, so it's a little rough. Yeah.
So like, obviously, being on specials, you may experience my question differently, but when you're in those huddles, and you may have a drive coach of another team who's trying to throw their like weight around, or like they're like, yeah, this is right, we need to get the co-op point because that gives us a ranking point, when it clearly a co-op point is not equal like ranking point, but like whatever it may be, like how do you approach that respectfully without getting as heated as them, or like making sure that you're still putting the whole alliance in the best position to win? Mostly for qual matches. Because if it's an elimination match, you wouldn't have picked that team if you already knew that going in. But like
Right.
for those qual matches,
I think that, I experienced it less than I did when we were real bad.
yeah.
I think that it's really difficult. I don't have like a catch-all answer. I think anticipation is really important. Like I said earlier, just like knowing going in, like we're gonna have a hard time from that team. Okay? They're gonna be really assertive about this, and that. All right. What strategy do we think they're gonna come up with? Maybe it's the same as what we want to do, right? Oftentimes that'll be the same. They just need to be the ones to say it, right? Oftentimes that ego just needs to go first. Just needs to be the one with the idea, right? So I think that helps. Because maybe they'll just say the same. We're all playing the same game. Most of the time, we're all going to have the same idea of what strategy to run. A lot of people make this super complicated. It's not that complicated. Split the field, score as many game pieces as you can. It's every year, right? But it's hard. I mean, we experience it at Worlds more often now than we don't experience it more at the regional level as much, but definitely at Worlds we experience it. And you'll have like 2 matches where it's a problem. So you have to anticipate. That's my best advice, to anticipate. Yeah.
How do you balance in a game that has kind of like limited resources? Like last year, for example, there's 2 human player stations, and you're talking about splitting the field, and 3 offensive robots on an alliance. Everyone wants to be the one robot on the one side with more space to operate. How do you like balance that with your alliance partners to make sure everyone comes away happy?
I think knowing how many game pieces they're averaging, knowing what their peak is, those are 2 pieces of information we put down right on our strat mat as we're prepping for the match. So we have team number peak averages game pieces, end game what they're doing, end game any notes, right? So if they're averaging 5 game pieces, they need 1 face, right? maybe they're going to score more if they're on that front face, and that's what they really want to do, the side face. It's like, all right, let's just give them that because that's what they're going to be at their best. Or they're averaging 1 game piece, and they probably should not have that face. Right? 5 minutes, Jesse. Is that what you're telling me? Do you mind muting your mic? I mean your walkie-talkie. Thank you. Okay. Yeah.
You mentioned that when the alliance is made for alliance, you're married, you're together till death or elimination, do you part? Do you
Or till backup coupons do us part.
Oh, yeah,
Right.
that's
Right.
yeah, that can also happen.
Yeah.
Do you guys have anything in place to make sure that you're getting the best out of your alliance partners? Like anything to help make sure that if they need mechanical assistance or anything, or they're having an issue, that you can support them, or like even batteries, all those kinds of things. Like, do you have anything in place for that?
Yeah, so we have a team of students, and usually be like maybe a mentor, maybe not, who we call them Pulse Crew. And at competition, they help teams who need help, right? And generally, they're focused on 2 groups of teams. 1 is teams that really, really need help. 2 is teams that are in our upcoming matches, making sure they're ready to go and have mobility, right? Which is especially important this year's game because of the ranking point, right? And then those students will help our partners through playoffs. And times of the year we do a really good job of being consistent with this, and at times of the year we kind of let it slip and no one's doing it, like especially at off-season events. It's often an issue. That's like the main thing we have in place, and those will be software and mechanical kits. In terms of batteries, we just, I don't know, give them our battery. Like we usually come with 15, 14, and we'll just maybe give them 1 or 2 if they need it. Yeah. Any other questions? Okay, I think that's perfect time. Thank you so much for coming. That's my email. Feel free to reach out to me if you have any like specific questions as the season comes up. Good luck this year.